Good evening. My name is Tony Brewer, and along with Joan Hawkins and Kyle Quass, I am a co-producer of the Writers Guild Spoken Word Series, the Zoom edition. And this is this is the end of our 5th year, coming up on the end of our 5th year running the series, the end of our almost 2nd year running it as an online series. And we are planning to be back in person in 2022, so be sure and keep an eye out for details on that. We are sponsored in part by the Indiana Arts Commission, the Bloomington Arts Commission, and the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association. The Writers Guild at Bloomington wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that Indiana University and the city of Bloomington were built on indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. I have a couple of housekeeping things to mention before we get to our features this evening. Third Sunday Write is currently a virtual space to find writing prompts and the company of other writers. It is sponsored by the Writers Guild of Bloomington, and members can visit a private Facebook page to respond to prompts that are posted monthly. You can write and post anytime during the month and offer a response to others' writings by sharing a readback line, which is a line from their piece, in the comments. Third Sunday, we'll be meeting in the Monroe County Library when in the foreseeable future, but for now it's still an online thing. So for more information about the group, contact Shauna Ritter at Shauna, S-H-A-N-A, Shauna 747 at gmail.com, and be sure and include Third Sunday in the subject line. This also pertains to this evening. The Ryser Scholarship is open now to Writers Guild members. The Writers Guild at Bloomington is offering the Ryser Scholarship to Writers Guild members to attend a writing workshop or conference in 2022, such as the IU Writers Conference here in Bloomington, or a gathering of writers at the Indiana Writers Center in Indianapolis, or wherever. The scholarship is up to $350. You are welcome to attend a virtual or in-person workshop or event. If you have any questions or to receive an application form, contact Patsy Ron at Ryser Award, that's R-Y-S-E-R Award at writersguildbloomington.com. The deadline is November 30th, 2021. About the Ryser Scholarship, it is named for Joan Ryser, an English teacher who taught at Bloomington High School South for many years. Before she passed away, she instructed her children to direct memorial contributions to a local program to encourage writers. The Writers Guild was honored to be the recipient and created an ongoing scholarship to help writers attend a workshop or conference. Each year we offer this award to either an English teacher or junior or high school student or a member of the Writers Guild at Bloomington. And once again, the deadline is November 30th. We're thrilled tonight to have 2 of our scholarship awardees as part of our featured readers tonight, as well as a former student of Joan Ryser. And we'll get to those folks in just a moment. First Sunday Prose Reading and Open Mic is happening on Sunday, November 7th at 3 p.m. And that is live and in person at Morgenstern Books at 849 Auto Mall Road here in Bloomington, with featured readers Ray Zdonek and Joseph Walker, and that is followed by an open mic. We are not having a meeting, Writers Guild meeting in the month of November, but we are having our annual meeting, officer election, and open mic on Saturday, December 11th at 2 p.m., and that is via Zoom. All this information and more is available on our website, which is writersguildbloomington.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is how you become a member of the Writers Guild of Bloomington, and you can do that by visiting our website. We also encourage you to like/follow us on any of your favorite flavor of social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So do connect with us because we'd like to connect with you. Quick shout out for next month on the first Wednesday, which is the 1st of December already. Wednesday, December 1st, we're having a small press featurette featuring from Missouri, John Dorsey, from Toledo, Johnny McIntyre, and from Kansas City, Jason Reberg. Those are all small press publishers here in the Midwest. And also featuring music by Seth Andrew Davis. So that is next month, Wednesday, December 1st. As I said, two of our featured performers this evening are Ryser Scholarship winners. That's Juliana Crespo and HANH Bui. And also joining us this evening is Shayne Lauder, who was a student of Joan Ryser's at one point. We're going to start off with a bit of music from Sarah Cassidy. Sarah Cassidy is a singer-songwriter who idolizes guitar-wielding women and personal, poetic, and eccentric storytelling. Inspired by the likes of Joni Mitchell, Alanis Morissette, Dodie Clark, and Jack Johnson, Sarah has been performing her original music around Indiana since her freshman year of high school. At Indiana University, she currently studies voice at the Jacobs School of Music with an outside field study in arts management. But if you asked her nicely to put all that on hold to do a big old tour, she would probably say yes. Please welcome Sarah Cassidy.
Hello, hello. It is so lovely to be back playing music with the Writers Guild. Tony had just mentioned when we started this Zoom, the last time I played was, I think, at the beginning of when everything went on Zoom, and I was in my college dorm room, and now I'm in my college house. So, oh, how the time flies. This first song I'd like to play is called Garden. All the songs I'm playing tonight, all the originals I'm playing tonight are newer pieces that sort of came out of 2020, which was definitely the pits. But this song is sort of towards the end of 2020. I wrote this and trying to look on the bright side of things and letting the sunlight come through. And yeah, this is Garden. Time is starting to make sense again. Yesterday seems much closer than it did last week. I started brushing my hair more, watering my garden, taking my sweet time. Treasuring the layers of uncertainty. I know that I've been gone and I haven't said much, but I'm used to saying words just to fill the empty spaces between today and tomorrow. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. Oh, I bend my branches as it moves from 9 a.m. to noon. Treasuring the layers of uncertainty. I know that I've been gone, I haven't said much, but I'm used to saying words just to fill the empty spaces between today and tomorrow. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. Oh, I bend my branches as it moves 9 a.m. to noon. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. I cut fresh fruit as the light streams in. I bend my branches as it moves from 9 a.m.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah. We'll be hearing a little more from Sarah later on as we go through the evening. Our first feature for this evening, Ryser Scholarship winner HANH Bui was a member of the Bloomington High School South Writing Club and a contributor to the Optimist, the school's student news site. One of 4 National Scholastic Writing Competition participants from Central Indiana to place at the national level, she won a silver medal for her writing portfolio, Daydream. Please welcome HANH Bui.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really nervous and yeah. So for my first slot tonight, I'm going to be reading from a flash fiction I wrote a few months ago, I think. So this is called Showtime. The mistress takes in each calculated movement of my limbs and turns, akin to the way a panther cloaked under Mother Night's domain would stalk prey. I desperately want to fall into a heap on the floor, yet I extend my legs up until my hamstrings flare. I push off harder and spin in sync with the music, courtesy of the porcelain orchestra playing from a small balcony. I plaster on a melancholic look as the melody draws to a close. Go through the entirety of my stretch and dance routine in a corner, ensure every component of my costume is in place, seal away any stubborn freckles and stray bruises with foundation, answer curtain call for my solo, the one chance to prove myself worthy. White moonlight flutters down and forms a glowing halo around me, joining the company of the painted eyes from the obsidian-cloaked audience. Tempting it may be to shrink before them, but instead I dance, and the burning sensations melt around me. I bask in the self-created wind and how it weaves its hand through my hair with each turn and leap. The audience gasps when I let my tutu unravel, revealing a ball gown made of flowers for the final movement. The extra fabric circling my legs should prove to be a challenge, yet I feel light as a bird. I wonder if it's because I know the routine like a lover, or if it's the high from the audience's delighted surprise driving me. Silence crashes down in the theater once the music and I finish. It's suddenly overtaken by gears turning as people's faces spin into wide grins and thunderous applause. I bow and improvise a grin in retribution, asking how desperately I want air to return to me. Having the key to my dream brick house and attending elusive parties is nice, but it's nothing like the buzz of the music taking over as my muse with each new routine, the undeniable euphoria and knowing the mistress holds me up as a model to strive towards for the new dancers, that I'm among the pantheon of dancers I've worshipped before, the joy I get from the, dare I say, fans who wait outside for me with flowers and praise, their faces spin to express the jubilance they found in something I did and how they deem me worthy of flowers. Time moves like crystallized honey during my nights in the rehearsal studio. Company takes form in painkillers, music, and my reflection. At least there are no witnesses to the constant breaks I take to soothe the growing body aches on the cool floor. Good things are hard, and all the work has to be worth it. It's proven to be. It has to be. So I get up and back at it until I go home, rinse, and repeat. Dread looms over the foot of my bed, growing by the day, along with the desire to bury myself under my sheets before rehearsals. The once welcoming warmth of the moon's spotlight now burns into every patch of skin. The applause sends chills down my spine. The flowers and compliments drive me on the verge of sickness, weighing heavily during all the sleepless nights now plaguing me. The changes in my behavior don't go unnoticed. Everyone in the company stares, shifting amongst themselves whenever I pass by. Before tonight's performance, the mistress's statue gray eyes tell me everything I need to know. All of this can go away as quickly as it has graced me. After going through the motions and dragging myself into place, a half-hearted smile and a strained back takes over. The curtain reveals looks of anticipated glee for what's been promised to them. Akin to the previous performances, this one is tattooed into my brain. Just as the music should be carrying me through the dance, I don't move and my body unwinds from its starting position. Instead, shrinking under the lights and changing eyes of the audience, the symphony of spinning faces and disgruntled whispers drowns out the porcelain orchestra. When my feet carry me to the outskirts of the edge, a sharp whip cracks past my ear. Golden silk from the curtains wraps around my wrist. When I tug my wrist back to my side, the rope pulls harder and lifts me off the ground. more ropes fly out and take claim of my limbs. The more I thrash and struggle, the more they tighten like death is at my heels. Tears burn and lips tremble as they barely manage out feeble pleas. One new rope snares around my chin, forcing me to face the audience. Everyone is on the edge of their seats. Smiles return to their faces. The cord around my head loosens, migrating to my throat and taking hold there. Air escapes me as easily as a runaway in the night. The ropes contort my limbs mid-air with the precision of a puppet master to the soundtrack of delighted gasps and the music picking up right where it left off. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Han. We'll have another set from Han Bui a little later. Next, I would like to bring up Juliana Crespo. Juliana won a Ryser Scholarship to attend the virtual Indiana University Writers Conference in 2021. Having earned an MFA in fiction from Indiana University Bloomington and an MA in fiction from the University of Nevada in Reno, she teaches English and journalism and serves as a yearbook advisor at Bloomington High School South. She released Touch the Universe in 2020 from Platypus Press Shorts No. 3, Book 2, and her other work has appeared in the North American Review, Hobart, PANK, Flash Fiction Magazine, Fiction Southeast, and Literary Orphans, among other publications. Please welcome Juliana Crespo.
Hi, everyone. So I have a few pieces to read tonight, and it seems as though I was going for a theme in several of the pieces, which is based on my immigrant background. So the first piece I have here is called Here's Where I Leave You. I'll read this one and then I'll see how much time we have left. Tony, if I seem to be going over a little bit, just let me know, but I'm keeping my eye on the time. More than a year ago, my mother told me you had died from cancer. She cried as though you had always been soul sisters, not like you'd often fallen into a whirlpool of mutual competition and animosity. I suppose it makes sense now. You were the two who made it to America, leaving behind Brazil and all those relatives who watched from afar, curious to see which cousin would win the race of life in a new country. Chia Elizabeth, you know I'd proclaimed my hate for you years before. Even so, I couldn't help it. I went to your Facebook wall and sifted through the grieving posts until I got to the photos of you. And then you were emaciated, a skeleton version of your old self. You carried a medical bag with you, held it close like it contained your heart. And you were old, much older than the last time I'd seen you when I was a preteen girl, this some 30 years before. Back then, you used to invite me over to your apartment in Virginia Beach when my mother was out for the night. All I had to do was walk across our gritty townhouse complex. You were just a few steps closer to the glitzy strip and the beach where throngs of tourists flocked, all of them eager to sunbathe and brave the waves. How their idyllic life could butt up against the poor and hungry, I didn't understand, although I couldn't have voiced it this way then. My mother was still scrambling to support us, and already she'd started sending me to the store with food stamps. Milk and bread we needed most, it seemed. But your apartment was a tropical oasis, and I was at home there, so long as your husband, a white American who cursed often and drank even more, wasn't around. You always left the television on, usually a Brazilian soap opera you had on tape. Your home was casually messy, a contrast to my mother's obsessive cleanliness. I could breathe there, throw my feet up on the threadbare sofa, and read a novel without worrying about something having to be cleaned. One evening, he taught me how to cook, samba music screaming in the background. Like this, we could almost pretend we were back in Rio. You shook your hips as your hands efficiently spooned just enough meat filling into the dough cavity before folding over the yellow eyelid. You let me push down on the edges with fork tines, before slathering the surface with egg yolk. After you put the trays in the oven, we went out to the porch where you lit up a cigarette and cracked open a beer. We spoke in Portuguese. Our English was still too strained for conversation. And I opened myself up to you, told you I was unhappy with my mother, that our arguments left me wanting to run away. I was always reminded of my foreignness and awkwardness with her, never at home in my own skin. You nodded the entire time like you understood. And I thought I'd found in you a mentor, someone who understood my angst. But then a few days later, my mother wielded my own secret thoughts against me, deliriously angry with her newfound knowledge. So you don't want me to be your mother? She asked in a tight voice, and I scrambled to explain how my words had been taken out of context. There was no use. She didn't believe me. I learned then how Brazilian women can easily betray. After this, I refused to return to your apartment, and it wasn't long before you and my mother had a falling out too. Then we all hated one another, 3 foreigners in an indifferent world. It was perhaps a year later that I walked by your apartment with a couple of friends. We'd just come from the beach, and I didn't think you would be on your porch. But both you and your husband were sitting there, empty beer bottles strewn around the small dead lawn. I looked the other way and pretended I hadn't seen you, my stomach sick. Maybe you were drunk, I don't know. But as soon as you recognized me, you screamed, "Putinha, saia daqui." You and your husband stood up and began chucking rocks at us. We ran as fast as we could, our feet flying. I looked behind me once and caught sight of you laughing, your eyes glazed. After we disappeared around the corner, my friends gasped for air and asked me what I'd ever done to you. Nothing, I said, too embarrassed to share with them that you were my aunt. Sometimes I pretend you were never that person. Sometimes I choose to be compassionate. You had become a shell of a person after all. Deeply discontent with the sacrifices you made. Also, you could live in America with a man who constantly demeaned you. Alcohol, your only escape. And I reminded you of the poor Brazilian girl you once were, hope a wild flapping bird in your chest. Hard lessons, necessary lessons were ahead of you yet. Putinha, saia daqui, you'd said to me. Little bitch, get out of here. You might as well have been saying those words to yourself. But here's where I leave you, Chia Elizabeth. Here's where I leave you as I say goodbye. We're back in the hospital room, and I'm sitting beside you, holding your frail hand in mine. You look up at me, and all at once we're young again, both of us, the yearning in our eyes as clear as the stars on a cloudless night. We both begin to cry, and I wrap my arms around you, whisper to you what any little girl wants to hear. Você é amado, querida, você é amado. You are loved, darling, you are loved. So that is the first piece. It looks like I'm doing okay on time. So I will read a second, about 4 minutes here. Actually, I'm gonna switch things around to keep with the time. Okay, this one is called American Immigrant. Told you there's a theme. There's one that doesn't keep with the theme, but this one definitely fits. It was one of those steamy days in Georgia. The bright sun glared down at us, and the lake was a hazy mirage I was too hot and lazy to swim in. I was visiting my mother at the time, down from Indiana. Her husband and my 8-year-old daughter had quickly stripped down to their bathing suits, made for the water. He was tossing her up in the air now, her small body violently flinging like a sack of flour before she cannonballed into the deep blue. It was dizzying to watch. Her screams of delight easily reached us during this otherwise uneventful moment. In hindsight, it should have felt more eventful. I hadn't seen my mother in a couple of years. I'd been reluctant to make the 8-hour drive, dreading the fights that sometimes ended in screaming and dramatic departures, the quiet that always followed for weeks, neither one of us willing to make the first phone call to apologize. We were mother and daughter after all, our history intertwined like a spider web, all manner of desiccated bugs on display. This time we both stayed calm, at least so far. Then the flies came, insistent. There were a number of them too. My mother looked around for the source, her sharp eyes zeroing in on a family picnicking about 100 feet from us. You see that, she said? They attracted the flies. Now we have to deal with the damn things. I didn't look. Instead, I tilted my head back and partially closed my eyes, the sun hot on my cheeks. When a fly landed on my leg, I ignored it, just to make a point. Can you believe that, she continued, her voice conveying the disgust I'd known so well as a child. They're just eating lunch, I muttered. Leave them be. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about them. I opened my eyes just enough to see where my mother was now gazing, a group of young adults swimming in their clothes. They were peaceful in their mannerisms. Their skin as brown as my own. They're Indian, Mom, I said. It's a cultural thing. Well, she said, they're in America now. Who do they think they are? I looked at her. Her straightened, bleached hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, her eyes rimmed with dark makeup. She wore a black one-piece, her small, swollen feet nestled in sporty flip-flops. On her head sat a pair of gold-studded sunglasses. Don't you agree? She impatiently asked, meeting my eyes as if challenging me. She still spoke with an accent, even though she'd left Brazil for America almost 35 years before. I mean, I had to do it, become American. You had to do it when you were a child. Yeah, so we should understand how they feel, I said, trying to stay calm. Besides, they don't need to adopt American customs just because you did. She harumphed. Of course they do, she said. And I could have said so much then, but the sun highlighted the sadness written around her eyes and mouth. Her immigration had been nothing short of traumatic. Her first American husband, a man who'd physically and sexually abused her, taunted her inability to speak English. He'd eventually send her back to Rio, cruelly claiming she was no longer erotic. Still, she'd worked hard to learn English, save up money, determined to reclaim the life that belonged to her. And she'd made it back, surprisingly, a young woman, undaunted by the fact that she was a single mother and an immigrant at that. Later, she'd bring my grandmother and me over, and then my aunt. A fly hovered close to her cheek. She was too busy watching the swimmers to notice. She looked almost envious as they floated on their backs, laughing as one of them immediately sunk. I lifted my hand toward her cheek and fanned the fly away. What? She asked, looking my way with surprise. Just trying to keep the flies away from you, I said. She glanced my way, smiling a little. Thank you, she said, her shoulders relaxing, her face softening for just one moment. All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
That's great, Juliana. Thanks so much. Always love hearing your stories. Let's have a musical interlude now from our musical guest, Sarah Cassidy. Sarah?
Hello, that was really wonderful. I'm really enjoying just listening to everybody's pieces, and lyrically, it's very inspiring to be able to hear poetry and separate it from the music. I often try to write poetry or lyrics first and then set it to music, and it's really hard. And I really love. This is wonderful. So the next song I'm going to play is not an original song I've written, but it's a song that speaks a lot to me and one I listened to a lot freshman year of college, got me through a lot. And it's called Grow As We Go by Ben Platt. You say there's so much you don't know. Need to go and find yourself. You say you'd rather be alone. But you think you'll find it tied to someone else. Who said it's true that the growing only happens on your own? don't know me and you. I don't think you have to leave. If to change is what you need, change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. Take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. You won't be the only one. I am unfinished, I've got so much left to learn. Don't know how this river runs, but I like the company through every twist and turn. Ooh, said it's true that the growing only happens on your own. They don't know me and you. I don't think you have to leave. If to change is what you need, change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. Take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. I don't know who we'll become. I can't promise, it's not written in the stars. But I believe that when it's done, we're gonna see that it was better that we grew up together. Tell me you don't wanna leave, 'cause if change is what you need, change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. Take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go. And that's Grow as we go. So moving back into the original songs, I'll do one more piece in this section. This is called Honey. It's still work in progress. It's one of my more recently written songs. I was actually working on it a little bit more today. I just keep sort of, picking at it. So this is Honey. Do you see me standing in the sun, writing down the lyrics to every song you love? Know that I'm not what you're looking for, but I can be it round my edges. I see you in the shade. Nothing's ever been brighter. No, no, no. There is honey dripping down my lips, brush against my hardened fingertips. Oh, please, I'll stand so still. I won't scare you away. I weep for those who loved me. They are reading every song, but I am looking for you, waiting to be hit by the train, for your blue, green, brown eyes to look my way. Come a little oh sweet thing. I'm awake and you are sleeping now. I must look ridiculous, I'm yearning so loud. I can be so warm all by myself, but oh how I want to be warm for someone else. It's too good to be true until you. I weep for those who loved me. They are reading every song, but I am looking at you. Come with me and lay in the shade, and oh, your green eyes look my way. Come a little closer, oh sweet thing. With our edges lay all day. And that's Honey.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Sarah. Always a pleasure to hear your songs and your covers too. That was great. Our next feature for this evening, was a student of Joan Ryser there at Bloomington High School South. Shayne Lauder is a Bloomington native with an IU degree who has been trying to leave the Hoosier nest for more than 30 years, yet keeps coming back for just a bit more. She has been a freelance and staff writer in print and broadcast media, including for WFHB Community Radio and WFIU Public Radio. Her novel, short stories, and screenplays have been published in literary journals and won honors in national competitions. Please welcome Shayne Lauder.
Hi. This is really beautiful, beautiful event, and so I have to. I do want to tell people that Joan Ryser was a big influence on my writing as an English teacher, because she saw that I had a knack for writing and expressive writing, and she gave me permission to write whatever I wanted. In terms of like I could to write the way I wanted. I wanted to be expressive. I wanted to be tell jokes. I wanted to invent things. I wanted to, really be creative. And she let me do it. And so that that permission was really important to me as a young writer, as a teenager. And I do want to say that what I'm going to read the story takes place in 1902 in the hill country of southern Indiana. It was published online in the Matador Review, and is part of a collection of stories that are linked by place and family in southern Indiana through about a century of time. And tonally and subject matter, it is like a 180 flip from all the beautiful, lyrical, vulnerable pieces we've been enjoying here. So I just like fasten your seatbelts. Okay, this is a short story called Emmonsburg Road. 1. Parklet household visit. Spoke with 2 Parklet men, father and son. This is the time of sin against earth and the law, Papa said. A man in an overcoat, buttoned-up vest, collar, tie, and hat had come from the courthouse in Hinton to the Parklet place with a paper that said they had to remove. This is the tribulation, Papa said when the Hinton man had gone. Cross Parklet was born of sin, so he listened. His ma'am, Daddy's wife, had lain with a dark angel and made Cross. So Cross paid special attention to talk of sin. Always when sin was the subject, He gave heed to Papa and Daddy, lest they turn their blazing eyes towards him and let their big hands fly out at him or at Mam. He was 9 years old. The Hinton man visited all the houses of Emmonsburg with his paper, but not all of Emmonsburg had to remove. The bottom lands were small and tight here along Lick Creek, and the timbered hills were steep. Emmonsburg was spread out, up and down. The Baptist church would be spared, and the store, and the cemetery, and the houses that were close to them, because their ground was high. But 20 or so other families with acres of timber and hunting and plowed land, all of whom considered themselves living in a town called Emmonsburg, had to remove and live somewhere else. The houses and outbuildings, the man said, would be destroyed and then covered by water. This was all Cross could hear from the back porch room where he slept with Mam. Mam sat on the edge of the bed, tight with listening, one hand laid on Cross's foot. Cross pretended to sleep, but he too strained to hear. Work had already begun, the Hinton man said, to stop Lick Creek from flowing. It would back up, turn around, flow over the bottomlands, and rise high enough to drown the timber. The parts of Emmonsburg near Lick Creek would soon be the bottom of a lake. Who says so? Daddy asked. The Hinton man replied with a word Cross didn't understand. Daddy swore loud over and over. Cross heard the creak of wood that meant Papa had raised himself from his chair. Papa used his church voice, and the Hinton man left hastily. He shouted back through the door over Daddy's swearing the date when the Parklet household had to be removed. The structures would be destroyed 3 days after that, and in another 3 days their property would be covered by water. Mam's hand tightened on Cross's foot so that Cross gasped. Mam patted his foot, and Cross simply shifted as if going back to sleep. Daddy chased out the door after the Hinton man and spoke violence to the thing Cross didn't understand. When he slammed back into the house with more swearing, Papa pronounced sin and tribulation. They fell to passing the jug between them, and Cross drifted off into troubled dreams. 2. Elder Parklet man and grandson observed leaving Parklet homestead. Cross crept up to Papa and crouched in his shadow a while the next day, while Papa cleaned the mule's hooves. Papa, Cross whispered, what is, and he said the word he didn't understand. Papa set the mule's hoof down and stared straight ahead. The hoof pick stayed in his hand, and Cross kept his eye on it just in case. Then Papa shook his head so his white hair and yellowish-gray beard trembled. I show you, he said, without looking at Cross. You might as well see. And he slowly rose up, straightening and extending his full length like a snow-topped tree. He walked away, and Cross followed, relieved and mystified and happy. Papa got his rifle, a precious repeater, his most treasured possession, that went with him whenever he left his property. He bridled the mule and pulled Cross up to ride behind him. Cross was beside himself with excitement. He couldn't help smiling, looking up and up at the shaggy, greasy back of Papa's head, the broad wall of his back, and the rifle extending out beyond him as it balanced on his lap. Cross was careful not to cling too tightly to Papa's overalls as the mule plodded patiently along Emmonsburg Road, following Lick Creek through Emmonsburg Hollow. Cross did not want to make Papa look around at him and maybe smack him off the mule, for it would be a long and cold walk back. They took a trail leading up the ridge above Lick Creek. Rumblings and roarings came through the air to Cross's ears. Presently, the trail came out into the open, where the trees were scarce and the trail widened onto a shelf of rock. There, Papa pulled the mule to a stop. He swept his hand across the scene below him. What was happening at this end of Lick Creek? It was a vision Cross could not have imagined. His mouth opened to receive it. Beings moved as if alive, but without natural feeling. They extended arms and jaws and necks across the wide, flat mouth of Lick Creek. This had been the Sipes place, Cross remembered Daddy saying. But place no longer meant home here. There was nothing home-like about it. The Sipes house and barn and corn crib were gone. Dirt and timber and rock had been stripped away. Across had witnessed trees felled for firewood and quartered for lumber in the ripping power of the sawmill, but that was vanishing weakness compared to this. At the sawmill, men stood over the dangerous moving thing in a kind of dance with it and with the changing wood. Here, the knot creatures bit and lifted and rolled earth in chunks bigger than a man. A new hill was being built on top of the moving water. From where the mules stood, the men involved were small. Some ran among the roaring knot creatures, and one sat in a kind of saddle, moving rods. It took Cross a moment to observe that the sitting man guided the knot beast as it lifted earth and heaved it yonder. In his short life, Cross had seen wonderful horses like laughing mountains drawing wagons and plows, but they had joy and sovereignty to toss their heads and switch their tails. These work things had no such freedom. And finally, Cross found the word machine. It unfolded to fit the scene and the horror of what was being done to Lick Creek. No wonder the creek would stop flowing, back up, change its nature. Anything to get away from this. This, said Papaw, is your government. He added the mystery word to the scene. It clicked together neatly with machine in Cross's mind. See all those men? Papaw commanded. Each man has a boss he's got to mind. Got to give up his own sense and do what the boss says. And that boss, he's got a boss. He's got to mind. And that next boss the same. On and on. A chain of bosses, looky, and not one his own man. Chains, looky, waiting to shackle us all. Less'n we keep moving and keep our own minds. Bosses decide to dam up a creek and raise a lake. Never mind how many of us got to remove and leave all behind. You wonder what is government, boy? Papa nodded his bottomless contempt at the scene below it. That's it, right there. 3. Parklet household removal is incomplete. Come the date the courthouse paper spoke of, the Parklet family had removed all they could to the barn behind Emmonsburg Baptist Church. There they slept and cooked until Daddy could find work at a place in Hinton to keep them. Papa wouldn't stay with them. Every day he set off down the road back into Emmonsburg Hollow with his repeater rifle under his arm. He'd return with a few squirrels for supper, plus a pot or something from the old place to prove he had only been retrieving what couldn't fit on the wagon. 2 days after the date the removal paper had spoken, Papa went down Emmonsburg Road as usual, but did not return. Not that night, nor the next. Daddy was in Hinton at the time and came back cheerful because he'd found work driving teams for freight wagons, and he'd put his pay down to rent a small house. Mam's frantic gestures and mewling noises shut out his news until he struck her mouth. He looked fire at Cross, and Cross told him Papa hadn't come back from the old place for 3 days now. Why can't you just say that? Daddy shouted at Mam. She only crawled into the barn straw and rubbed her face. It would be years yet before Cross learned that while Mam had never been wordy, laying with the dark angel had shut her up for good. Daddy thought she was just being stubborn, and her silence meant she really did love the son of a bitch. Son of a bitch was the angel's other name. Cross perked up when it was spoken, as much as when sin was discussed. Daddy said, son of a bitch, over and over as he struck out down Emmonsburg Road that day, and Cross followed. Daddy didn't see him tagging behind, and that was fine with Cross. What drew Cross was not just the possibility of learning more about the dark angel, but more so learning about the bitch that the angel was son of. Cross was fairly certain that this bitch, his true mamaw, was an enormous black dog. Cross pictured her with slavering jaws, hundreds of sharp yellow teeth, red eyes and gums, a purple dripping tongue, and bulbous duds swinging on her belly. She'd been much on Cross's mind since Papa declared the time of sin and tribulation. Cross had not yet worked out where his mama stood on the matter of Lick Creek. She had not reared up against the government, except in a dream that had wakened Cross one dawn. In another dream, Mama held out an iron chain looped for Cross to wear around his neck. He woke before the dream showed him what his hand would do. And yet, going down Emmonsburg Road, Cross divined that Daddy's sing-song son of a bitch meant Papa, not the dark angel. This was new, and Cross pushed himself to a trot to stay within earshot of Daddy's voice in case more information was forthcoming. Son of a bitch, old man, son of a bitch. What am I going to do with you, you damned old son of a bitch, Daddy said. Just before the road dipped sharp down into the hollow, Daddy turned to the wide and well-used crossroad that led into the yard of Emmonsburg's store. He still had not seen Cross, and the boy found no reason to break the magic distance. Cross ducked into the brush at the side of the road to go catty-corner, and by the time he got where he could see the store's front, Daddy was on the porch, stepping inside the shadowed door. 4. Parklet heritage is redefined. Accuracy remains doubtful. Cross dropped into a crouch, made himself small and considered. Daddy had spoken the other name of the dark angel as a name for Papa. What did that signify about Daddy's father, Papa, and Cross's own true father? As soon as he asked himself the question, Cross had it. The dark angel was Papa's brother. They were both sons of a bitch. Knowledge thrilled his body, and Cross felt his bloodline glow. Small as he was now, the fearsomeness that gave Papa command over animals and trees and tools and people was within reach, within Cross's rights. And these rights and power that would be came from Mama. The dirt and scrub trees and brush around Cross sighed and swayed with Cross's revelation. Mama the bitch was as close as the dirt that enclosed the tree roots around him and entwined the cloth of Cross's overalls and even his very skin. In his mind, she had changed form. She no longer went on all fours like a dog, like Mam crawling through the barn straw. Now that picture of Mam with her breasts swaying loose under her apron and blood welling from her lip caused excitement deep in Cross's most secret belly, so it curled up there to stay. Nope, Mama left crawling behind and showed Cross she could stand tall as Papa with legs and arms like strong folk. Her face remained a grinning dog's, and her many tits hung all down her front, which was how she liked it. Cross's reverie was broken when Daddy and the storeman came out talking and went down off the porch and around the side of the building. Cross wondered what the business was. But Mama wasn't done with Cross. She drew his mind to the dark rectangle that led into the store. Cross felt Mama's hunger. It was her command to him, especially to him. He stood and slipped through the brush, into the yard and up onto the porch, swift and silent. There was a milky light inside the store through high windows, and Cross entered. Cross had been here before, perhaps a year ago, and though the crates and bags and barrels had shifted somewhat, all was more or less the same as he remembered from the first impressive visit. Bulging burlap, sanded wood, oiled steel, pine-treated hemp ropes, skin-warm leather, sawdust, cut straw. The smells made Cross reel. It was a stronghold of unimaginable wealth, and so much of it was food. Dried greens, cornmeal, bottled vinegar, cans of lard, other mysteries Cross could not name. What was it Mama wanted? A glint of sunlight on glass told him. He'd seen this before, too, and wondered then and pointed and had been dragged away. It was a fat jar on a shelf behind the long counter that divided the room into front and back. It contained red and gold jewels, fiery in the tiny bolt of sun. The jar wore a glass lid with a wooden ball on top. By the time Daddy and the storeman came back around the corner of the building, Cross was back in the brush near the store, hidden, shaking with excitement and pride at the speed with which he had fulfilled Mamaw's command. 2 smooth red jewels were in his overalls pocket, and 2 more were in his mouth. The burning sweetness was an ecstasy so violent that Cross almost missed what Daddy was doing and what the storeman was saying. Daddy carried a canoe on his shoulders, struggling to balance it and walk at the same time. It hid his head and his footsteps wavered. Now, I'm telling you, Parklet, that their canoe's a 2-man portage and you ain't going to get down the hill, the storeman yelled. And I sure ain't coming with you to help. I ain't going to leave my business to the dogs for no one. Do what you please, Daddy yelled back from under the canoe. Pap will help me bring this blasted thing up the hill and you'll have it back then. Then Daddy lost his balance and stumbled, and the canoe crashed to the ground. Go hard, Parklet. You mean to buy yourself a stove-in canoe? The storeman laughed. Daddy sat defeated by the canoe. He beat on it with his hat and then stood up. All right, to hell with it, he said. The 2 men hoisted the thing onto their shoulders and disappeared back around the corner of the store. Cross was content to wait and let the tide of sweetness in his mouth subside. Daddy returned alone to Emmonsburg Road, and Cross trailed him again, sometimes in the road and sometimes beside it. The red jewel sweetness gave him spring and daring. He had to catch himself up and crouch small a couple of times when Daddy looked around to see what was making noise in the brush. It wasn't long before Daddy, too, stepped up into the brush, because just as the Hinton men had said, the road was covered with water. Lick Creek was on the rise. 5. Unauthorized return to former Parklet homestead, eminent domain established. Lick Creek, which had flowed steady and deep on the other side of Emmonsburg Road across from the Parklet place, could no longer be called a creek. Its waters now completely hid the road and what had been the deep-rutted lane into the Parklet yard. The bottomland acreage Papaw had plowed and planted and harvested since before Daddy was born had gone silver, flooded, a rippling mirror for the day's perfect blue sky. But it had not yet taken all of the property under its embrace, because the house and barn and privy had been on higher ground that led to the foot of a timbered ridge. Daddy stopped when that ground was in sight, and Cross stopped too. They both marveled. The structures and the 2 old apple trees were gone. Nothing but heaps of smashed wood and tin roofing, a couple of twisted window sashes, and tree roots obscenely raised to claw the air. Foundation stones were knocked about, and the root cellar door tilted up at an angle on its hinges. In the middle of the wreckage was Papaw. Somehow the destruction had left a kitchen chair intact. Papaw sat enthroned beside the stubby remains of the chimney, straight-backed and fiery-eyed as ever, white hair shining in the afternoon sun, with his repeater rifle set on his lap. It was plain he meant to stay right where he was, while Lick Creek swallowed up everything that had been his. Daddy swore and found a stout branch fallen among the brushwood. He waded into the water, using the branch to steady himself. He sloshed towards his father through the flood. Cross noted that the water reached nearly to Daddy's waist. How would he make the crossing himself? Well, it took some doing to stay hidden, but Cross made his way around to the back of the high ground where he could reach the house yard unnoticed near the privy. Cross could hear Daddy yelling at Papaw, "You gotta come on!" And Papaw yelling back, "Ain't no place for me outside this holler. I'm staying right here." It occurred to Cross that soon there would be no air and no sky where he was walking, and he shivered to think of Papaw meaning to stay. Cross approached the men from behind, shielded by the remains of the house, splintered pieces of walls whose paint he still recognized. The earth was spongy underfoot in the throes of its change. So intent was he on moving quietly and staying hidden while keeping the scene in view, he did not spot another watcher in the high ground hiding place. a watcher who made careful notes on paper of what the two men were shouting. 6. Altercation at the former Parklet homestead, eminent domain established, between two adult males conclude. Daddy spoke no more. It was just Papaw's voice now. He faced away from Cross, and Cross could not make out his words, but it was the same low summer thunder that spoke to Lord and Father at Sunday dinner and led prayer and scripture at church when they went. Daddy stood with his chest sunk and his head to one side, mourning. His shoulders shook and a high-pitched whine escaped him. Cross stopped. Was Daddy crying? He was shaking his head. No, Cross could hear him say, no. Papaw handed Daddy his rifle. Didn't look at his son, just grasped the stock in one enormous hand and turned his arm so it was in the air between them. The barrel pointed up tall and shone in the sun. Daddy didn't make any more sound. He just grabbed the rifle out of the air and stepped around directly behind Papaw. Cross moved quickly to get a better view. He saw Daddy raise the gun and fire. The blast made Papaw's white head splash red and black, and he dove forward off the ground and off the chair and hit the ground hard, face first in the rubble. Cross opened his mouth and eyes, and a scream tore out of his chest. Daddy spun around, cocked a new shell in the chamber, ready, and then a second scream ripped open behind Cross, and a great black flapping winged thing exploded up out of the scrub, chasing some large creature before it. The rifle's barrel shifted just beyond Cross as Daddy fired. It was the Hinton man that jerked backwards. A notebook flew out of one hand and a pencil out of the other, and his body landed with a sopping thud. 7. Daddy lowered the rifle by inches, as if he didn't want to continue on to the next moment. He stared at the dead Hinton man as if straining to understand. Then by inches he turned and looked at Cross, who had been the first scream. Daddy's face was pale and had no emotion. He turned and looked at Papaw just as slowly, just as uncomprehending. Another brief look back to Cross, and he walked to the Hinton man. Cross followed, closed up the gap. He stood beside Daddy, and they both stared down at the dead man in his coat and vest. His hat had blown to one side. His white shirt and tie were spoiled with shot burn and blood. Some decision put life back into Daddy. He stepped over to a pile of smashed housewood and settled the rifle snugly in a way that would keep it up off the saturated ground. As he moved, sound and smells came back to Cross's senses. The wind rustled in the trees' upper branches as if they now gossiped together about the site. Cicada song returned, insistent and oblivious. The moving creek water trilled in its silvery voice. Daddy squatted beside the Hinton man and went through his pockets. He removed a handful of coins in a folded leather wallet and a sheaf of bills from that. He stuffed the money into the upper dry pockets of his overalls and returned the wallet to the man's inner coat pocket. There were other items Daddy looked at but didn't disturb, like cufflinks and a wedding ring, like the notebook lying open in the moist dirt. The pocket watch, now that was a temptation. Freed of its vest pocket, it dangled and spun from Daddy's hand. Cross stared at it as hard as Daddy, for it was beautiful. A round brass body polished bright as gold, with a crystal face, long chain, and a loud ticking. Marvelous thing, a wondrous thing. Cross had only seen one other pocket watch in his life, and it was not as large and bright as this. It did not tick like this one. To Cross, the tick-tock seemed equal to the water voice of Lick Creek. However, there were words engraved on the back. Daddy shook his head and put it back into the Hinton man's vest pocket. Anything people would know was his by sight, it's got to stay here, Daddy muttered. Daddy would never know how much that spoken wisdom thrilled Cross, whether he'd meant to share it with the boy or not. Cross felt his bloodline glow again as it now joined him and Daddy through Papaw, the brother of Cross's true father, both of them sons of a bitch. Something in motion caught the edge of Cross's vision. The Hinton man's hat was floating away. It passed the old root cellar, where a hulking black turkey vulture perched, watching them. The turkey vulture's naked, scabrous head tilted to look Cross in the eye. This was the creature that had flushed the Hinton man out of his hiding place. Once again, Cross felt Mamaw's hunger. Oh, of course, her hand was in this, Cross reasoned. His tongue still felt the faint tickle of the red jewel. She'd meant that for him. Now she needed her own. The vulture opened its wide, scraggly wings and flapped away to a tree. Cross reached out and patted Daddy's sleeve to turn his head. He won't float away if he's in there, Cross whispered and pointed at the root cellar. Daddy looked and moved his mouth, thinking. He stood up and took up the Hinton man under his shoulders. See if you can get his feet up, Daddy said to Cross. Cross was proud to hoist an ankle under each arm, and together they hauled the body across the littered yard. The root cellar was already mostly full of water. They slid the Hinton man in, and Daddy retrieved the notebook to toss in after him. They blocked the opening with broken slats of wood and chimney brick. Cross wondered briefly whether this would stand against Mamaw's hunger, but the tall, dog-faced bitch in Cross's mind only laughed to make her tits shake. Cross felt relief. They went to Papaw and turned him over. The rifle shot had come out the front of his face, so his nose and mustache were gone, just a red-black hole showing yellowish bone in his few lower teeth. Daddy seemed uncomprehending again, so Cross began gathering chimney bricks and placed them on Papaw's arms. Daddy moved to get large stones that had been in the house foundation and laid one in each of Papaw's hands and one on each foot. He did the same with his father's shoulders and hips, too. Between the bricks and the foundation stones, Papa wasn't going anywhere. They left his face free so he could watch the sky disappear behind water. Daddy stopped again and Cross waited. Daddy said to Papaw's body, Almighty knows you were a stubborn cuss. I done what you wanted. Everything else is between you and him. He kept his own mind, Cross said, high and clear. Daddy turned sharp like he just woke up. Cross marveled at how their faces were strangers to each other, how Daddy looked at him. Well, he did, Daddy said. He kept his own mind. Then Daddy spoke to him, directly to him. What you got to understand, Cross, and all the other folk, that your Papa done shot himself. You hear? You and me, we come up to the place, and when Papa saw us coming, he just turned that rifle around and shot himself. He was set to die on his own land, only he decided to use the gun instead of drowning. Daddy paused. He said to Cross, Papa had it in his mind anyways to shoot himself when the water come to his knees. He told me that. Daddy paused again. Daddy paused again, then repeated, so he shot himself. We set the stones on him just like we done. And that's all that happened. You understand that? You understand what I'm saying to you? His voice rose and his face had a desperation. Cross remembered something then, and he praised Mamaw in his heart. Cross walked up to his daddy and took the 2 red jewels out of his overalls pocket. He offered one to Daddy. Daddy saw what it was. He glanced at Cross, understanding it. Took it. They popped the jewels into their mouths. Daddy sucked in air through his nose to cool the heat of it. This time Cross knew to expect the sweet violence on his senses. He closed his eyes and knew Mamaw was satisfied. She was crouched down in the root cellar now, nosing into her feast. Daddy retrieved the rifle, and they both noticed that the higher ground had gotten smaller. It was even more of an island in the swelling flood. Daddy stooped so Cross could climb up onto his shoulders. Daddy had Cross lay the rifle across his lap, and he said, hold it firm, don't let it drop into the water. they waded through the flood towards the upward slope of Emmonsburg Road. Cross swayed atop his daddy's shoulders, and he surveyed the drowning land. The rifle was warm where his hands gripped it. His legs were warm where Daddy held them sure. He and Daddy were the last people to breathe this air, see these trees, and walk Emmonsburg Road this far. Cross turned his face up to the sun. Already his memory placed Papa in that chair by the chimney at the bottom of the lake, his white hair floating in the murky current. Papa would watch this land and guard his true mother, Mama, as she ate the polished, ticking heart of the Hinton man. Tick, tock, tick. There was hot sweetness in Cross's mouth, and somewhere a lone bird sang, pretty, pretty, pretty. Thank you. Sorry it went so long.
Thanks so much, Shayne. Always love hearing you read your stories. Let's have a musical, back to our musical guest. Let's hear more from Sarah Cassidy.
Here we go. Hello. So this will be my last song of the night. I've got to run to rehearsal. Ironically, I haven't had as much time to write music as I did back in 2020 because now I'm in music school, so I'm too busy to write music. But so things like this are very, very lovely to, be able to get back and share my music with people and work on it. And yeah, it's nice to have this again. So this last song I'll be playing is called Man in the Moon. I wrote this few months ago. It's another one I'm always tweaking at, but I want to try my hand at more of a bit of a story song since I often write more abstractly, I suppose. But yeah, this is Man in the Moon. I hope you like it. Today I'll take apart the moon and put it back together in the shape of your face, lover. Maybe you'll love me forever. I'll take each big old crater, save them in the stars for later. Dig out all the cosmic dust with fingernails and let it fall somewhere in Nevada. Fill her up with fresh space stuff, smooth out the bumpy edges, cover the whole thing in plaster, and feel it'll all stick to me. So I guess I'm sort of stuck here on this rock and all its layers, and the earth is pretty loud. I think I'll take a listen to their prayers. Everyone down there is drinking and whispering their messages to the moon. Everyone down there is lonely. They're breaking their bones while they dance and kissing their hands, and I'm waving at you. Do you feel it too? I write down every wish and give them to interstellar travelers. They say they know where to take them, and I'm not quite sure it matters. Some people are respectful and others are rather scattered. They're all asking for the same thing. Kind of funny how that happens. Everyone down there is drinking and whispering their messages to the moon. Everyone down there is lonely. They're breaking their bones while they dance and kissing their hands, and I'm waving at you. Do you feel it too? Thank you all so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Always a pleasure hearing from you. Let's have a final set from one of our Ryser Scholarship winners, Juliana Crespo.
Hi, everyone. So I still have a couple of pieces to read to you. One is what you would call super, more like microfiction, really. And then I've actually been working on a verse novel recently, following 3 generations of Brazilian women, and it's loosely based on my grandmother's, my mother's, and my own story. Takes place in Brazil, at least initially. So what I would love to do is read the beginning of that verse novel to you all tonight. It'll be my first time reading it in public. So I would love to hear your responses to that. But initially, I will start with the super brief piece called Sup on Sunshine. Today, the world is dreary. Look, the skies are gray and uninspiring, and we are discontent, mumbling about how we don't have it good because we're overworked, and our children are either too complacent or too aggressive. We stopped smelling the flowers years ago. We kneel in our gardens and plant seeds anyway, somehow knowing, feeling that our souls have slowly leached over the years, become vacuous. Yet our dreams show us again and again that we're made of stardust, that we are magic. When we wake up, our knees are weak with yearning. But as soon as we rub the sleep from our eyes, we tell ourselves, as we already have time and time again, that we prefer safe and predictable. Still, when no one is looking, we surreptitiously lean into the wind, the impulse to be wild still strong in us, a root holding fast to the earth. We open our mouths wide, wanting to taste the truth of ourselves, and we sup on sunshine and raindrops. We are daffodils reaching for the bright sky, our petals porous and golden with hope, our aches gone, our worries irrelevant. We linger. Hold on. I do need to get my cat out of here. I'm so sorry.
Cats. What would the writing world do without them?
All right, a little comedic moment for everyone. Sorry about that, but he starts like scratching in his litter box and it drives me nuts. Okay. We linger, but already life calls us back like a chagrined parent. And so we returned. And so we return, our hair unkempt, our clothes muddied. We dutifully perform our obligations. But even as we wash the dishes and take out the trash, we are scheming, planning the next time we can adventure, and once again, taste the deliciousness that is us. All right, so that's that brief little piece. Still needs a little bit of work, but I like the concept. All right, so I'm excited about this verse novel I've been working on. There is an interested literary agent, and so wish me all the luck. The first bit that I'm going to read to you is called Lucky, and it's you can't see it, but every time the time shifts, I make sure to include that time. So at the very beginning, just know that we are in 1950. Maria wouldn't have known the first thing about school if someone had asked her. She was only 17 years old, and to her, words were spoken, or sung in joy or sadness, or hummed beneath her breath when the sunset was particularly striking, a gold coin in the sky, she could stare at for only seconds at a time before her eyes teared up. Besides, Maria needed money for her baby, 2 years old, his round cheeks always pink from play in the dirt, his laughter still robust and uninhibited. What good would written words do her? Those scribbly markings that only a few campoistas understood and tried to teach. Tried to teach the rest of them as though this might change things. Nothing here changed. That was the one thing she could rely on. Even the trash that piled up in the street in front of the lonely grocery store was constant, the old farm home sprawling like tired animals who could barely breathe. Her sister had moved to Rio, had returned home once since, but she was changed, a woman now, different from the child she'd once been, the rambunctious girl who'd ridden horses bareback and climbed atop roofs to be closer to the stars. Gone were the bare feet, the face dirtied from play. Gone were the curiosity and adventurousness. She wore clothes that seemed out of place here, too pretty, too nice, too constraining. Maria didn't know that Rio was better, like her sister said. Campos had its suffering, but didn't everywhere. Her sister's eyes were sad when she came home. She said she was happy, smiled big, but her words fell flat. Maria knew Gilda wasn't telling the truth. Still, she didn't pry. She only looked at her, sensing the truth, realizing that here, folks still drew water from their wells, saying to the ghosts who lived in them. They still lit the night with oil lanterns and candles, a glowing softness that ensconced them on cool and warm nights. They still looked at the stars and felt things, the touch of the wind on their cheeks, the coy call of an owl in the night, the playful lick of a dog that had run over from the neighbors. They had the trees, living, breathing creatures. They had silvery rivers sneaking through the forests and rolling hills. They were one with the earth. Part of this oneness was the suffering that slowly crept up on them over the years, the weight like a vine that took hold and held on, struggling for its own life. Were the trees, even the beautiful ones with their rotting limbs, wanting relief. They knew too that their suffering was like the clouds, coming in different shades. Some were the stark gray of a thunderous sky, others were the more muted blue of a drizzly morning, and yet others were imbued with purple hues, hinting that hope was still at home in their world. As for Maria, she'd once been the pink of a shy rose, the turquoise of an afternoon sky, the speckled gold of her mother's eyes, the green of a lazy fern reaching for the shade. But she'd been a child then, somehow blind to the suffering around her. Now she understood that peace and suffering were tied together, no one more important than the other. Her child's father wouldn't have stayed just to ease her suffering, just to help her. She was weary from caring for her son, tending the garden, harvesting the rice, knee-deep in rivers, but still made a point of beginning her days with a mug of hot tea, the black leaves sometimes telling a story of lovers dancing in the rain, children chasing dogs. She sat on the front porch, the world waking up before her eyes, a new sight every time. This morning was no exception. The day slowly revealed itself, the colors above her singing in and out of existence. Lavender, vermilion, a touch of mint, honey. Maria sighed for a moment inside this life, grateful for it. Once, she would have collected together the earth along with berries and eggs. She would have painted this gorgeousness on strips of bark that her mother would have put up around the house, calling Maria her little artist. Maria had loved that. These days, though, she rarely felt inspired. Motherhood preoccupied her. Memories flickered in and out as she sat there, fireflies wanting her attention. She must have been 11 when she last visited her grandmother on the other side of the river. She was a wizened woman, hands lined with blue rivers, hair shimmering silver, her lips easily pulled back into a generous smile that revealed a toothless mouth. Her grandmother ate with her hands, talked about her own mother with great tenderness. "You think our lives are hard, Mia Filia," she softly barked. "Think about the woman who bore me and loved me despite the fact that my father raped her. He was a greedy man, taken up with his own selfish interests. Maria hadn't understood back then, though eventually she recognized the power men had over women." "We're a little luckier than that," her grandmother muttered as they sipped their tea in the afternoon light, "but not by much." She added in such a low voice that Maria almost didn't hear. "Back then, Maria thought she didn't need a boy, not when she could sneak away to the river, float on her back, her skin toasting to a dark brown, the sky above her voluptuous with clouds. How she liked to be right there alone. But she'd since learned that men had a way of sneaking into your heart even when you knew better, had a way of touching you until you found yourself begging for more. She was 13 when she'd followed him, the 15-year-old boy who farmed with her father. Down to the river they went. They stripped down, slipped into the silky water. His hands grabbed her small hips. He smiled with his entire face, his eyes crinkling at the corners when he leaned down to kiss her. She let him. Okay, I'm worried that I'm running out of time here, so I'm actually going to stop there. Thank you for letting me read. That was actually really, really great for me because I haven't read a lot of this, so it's great to just read it out loud and get a sense for the flow and so forth. So thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much, Juliana. That was great. We're all eagerly anticipating the finished product. That was great. It was wonderful. Let's have a final reading now from our other Ryser Scholarship winner, Han Bui.
Hi again. I just wanted to say before tonight it is such an incredible honor to be reading for the Writers Guild, especially because I've attended some of these spoken word events, and it's kind of crazy to think I'm one of the featured writers. So again, I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank everyone who took the time out of their day to listen. And to conclude my set, and I guess the series for tonight, I will be reading a poetry collection I just finished about a month ago called Eulogy, which I feel is very fitting to read because Eulogy would not exist if I hadn't gone to the IU Writers Conference, which I was able to go to thanks to the Ryser Scholarship, because I think it just really upped my game when it comes to poetry. So here is kind of a product of what I learned from the IU Writers Conference. All right, Twine. O forces above, why must you spin tales? Or are we mere foolish humans to blame for the eternal bonds poets regale as those carved into pawns haunt an ill game? Easy it is to look over the lot, watch as they all tear apart at the seams, yet I have to confess before I'm caught, I join the lot and lounge in wretched dreams. Invisible string tying me to you, while absurd to trust, it calls me over as a siren at sea would sweetly coo of its truth in us and its high honor. If I morph into a gambling woman, then betting on you would inspire fortune. Marionette. One night you spin me in your direction and swiftly were tied in a dance of knots. I'm the winner of your charmed affections, like luck had turned during my hand at slots, but we weren't of poetic bearings. Closer to a puppeteer's crooked fingers hang over his marionette strings, your eyes as shades shining on my weakness. Disgust eats away at me by the day. A voice in the dark screams, this can't be right. Yet I stay, because you love me, you say. Maybe all this will be worth the fight. So I show up ready for curtain call, what you'll give me mattering above all. Tangles. With you close, never did I expect this. My end of string being your masterpiece. With you as the maestro, your source of bliss, reaching the challenge that is making peace. I dare do the thing you respect me for. Speak my mind to you. You cast it aside. It's honestly not that dramatic. It's honestly not that deep. You're being dramatic. I got ahead of myself there for a second. Your words form a guide. You're smart. Maybe you have a point. Maybe I'm reading into things. There's nothing wrong. You held my hand to your heart with great glee. You wouldn't, right? I was to blame all along. Or maybe you would. You would dare, wouldn't you? Would you leave me for dead, all black and blue? Bystander. It's not true. You're not that type of guy. The ones you've loathed in solidarity when I cried while you lent your best kind eyes. Was it part of your crafted strategy? How many times did I defend you from my friends who all swore you were bad news? Maybe it's time I get a fucking clue. If you were good, why put me through your ruse? It turns out you aren't like the other boys. You're worse with how you hide your wickedness, with the mask of a good man in his poise, pulling strings while shouting your innocence. But thus concludes your puppet show as Big Star cuts herself loose and woe. Tenfold. If you were someone who actually cared about me, I fear the next one who swoops in tenderly with that mind. Will they spend the faith I placed in them on a selfish spree, maybe trap and pin me to a fabricated clown nine? After trusting you, you unveiled the ways your serpentine. I showed you the scars on my back and you added your own, yet you wonder why I cut off that silly piece of twine. The absolute nerve you have after the poison you've shown. The optimism within me would love to believe you've grown. Part ways with best wishes for you, but I can't stand a lie. I hope someone breaks you down until you're nothing but bone, just like how you left me. Maybe then you'd understand why. As much as I hate you, I have to join you in shared blame. For buying your charade, for letting you light me aflame. Rose-colored fractures. Just some reflections on the boy you are. You adore being the bigger person. Explains why you loved when you hated when I got far and loved whenever my life would worsen. You're so impossibly blind to your flaws, upset you have no path of redemption, yet not over the hurt and pain you cause. Fix yourself, then think about salvation. You loved making me save your sorry ass, making your wounded ego my problem, and you knew I'd keep giving you a pass, enjoying it like a sense of stardom. You just loved it when I chased after you. It meant you didn't have to put in effort, knowing I'd keep coming back within view, eager for me to make you feel better. You allowed me to gamble on false bets, ones composed of sweet and beautiful words you knew would morph into faded regrets, and thus set fire to all of my reserves. You probably never really cared, forcing me to wade through my memories, having to second guess all that we shared, leaving me with tales of depravity. You had me grieving an empty casket. Was anything of what we had real? Why cry over a deprived pickpocket? Do I mourn you or your crafted appeal? Lifeline. There's that old saying, old habits die hard. An innate isolation kicks and screams, its claws loosening an end to its schemes, but left satisfied with leaving me scarred. I think of how safe hiding away felt, where I can languish in thoughts of self-blame for allowing my trust to be your claim and allowing your cursed love to be dealt. Isolation doesn't entice me over. I brace for impact. I let go and fall into the arms of proven and true friends who say it all as they hold me closer, loving me when I can't, warts, scars, and all. Easing the ache from my splintered strings ends. End of an era. I never expected to be here, but when has life followed the lead of idealistic plans? Now that you're not here, there's a melancholic ease in admitting to some now worthless dreams. Ones of us as eternal, something I've longed for, as most people I've loved before were travelers passing by. I saw something in you that told me, he'll stay. Or maybe that's what I wanted to see, the way rose-colored glasses make red flags look just like regular flags, but without them, I see you for what you are, not the friend, but the enemy hiding behind a kind smile with a knife. But even after all of that, I still grieve over you. There are days I cry because there's one less person to turn to in the afterglow of my victories, because there's one less person to celebrate in return, because there's one less person to bear the locked pieces of my heart to, because there's one less heart to treasure tenderly in a covenant where we embrace one another in sweet return. Now I have my heart ripped at the seams, a ghost with your name haunting our hometown, broken promises, and an odd sense of relief in your wake. What once was an unlikely companion quickly became my closest as the relief showed me the world with newfound clarity. Without you, air comes easier to me, just as loving others has. Yes, I am even more guarded and fragile, but an unexpected ending to all of this is having been wrapped in a genuine, tender love and able to return that tenfold without fear. Not battered and bruised in the name of a false love that toys with me until it's had its fill. Thankfully, what I had with you isn't the best I could do. I can and have done better. There still is that inner voice predicting inevitable heartbreak at the hands of dear friends and warning me to flee before they strike, just like you did. But I don't want you to be the poster child of love for me. It's a true disservice to the word and people who love without an agenda. Let loving and allowing myself to be loved be my act of resistance against you. Tempting it is to cry over how you took from me, but you didn't. I will not let you make me feel less than any longer. You did not destroy me. I'm still here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Han Bui, that was wonderful. It was great hearing you. Like everyone was saying in the chat, you were on fire. We loved it. That's going to bring us to the end of our features this evening. I want to thank Han Bui and Juliana Crespo, our Ryser Award winners this year. Thanks also to Shayne Lauder, our other featured artist this evening. And of course, our musical guest, Sarah Cassidy, who has been with us before. Sarah's kind of a fixture with the Writers Guild, and we're always thrilled to have her. Be sure and join us next month, Wednesday, December 1st, for our small press featurette featuring John Dorsey poet John Dorsey from Missouri, Johnny McIntyre, a poet from Toledo, and Jason Reberg, a poet from Kansas City. And they are all small press publishers and have been published by several small presses. Also, our musical guest next month will be Seth Andrew Davis. I want to remind everyone, too, that the deadline to apply for a Ryser Scholarship is November 30th this year, coming up just later this month because it's already November. Details for that are available on our website, where you can also sign up for our newsletter. And be sure to like or follow us on social media. Once again, my name is Tony Brewer, and I am co-producer along with Joan Hawkins and Kyle Quass of the Writers Guild Spoken Word series. It's been a pleasure being with you this evening, and we hope to be with you next month and next year in person. Have a good night.
Thank you.